You're listening to the Down the Pub podcast, Canada's premier football show. Head to downthepub.ca to subscribe so you never miss an episode. So, welcome to this episode of the Down the Pub podcast. We are joined by FC Edmonton netminder Connor James. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
I'm really excited. I don't get to have many goalkeepers. I think I've just had one, maybe, which was Nico Giansopoulos, who's right. absolutely mental. So I'm hoping you're a little bit more reserved.
Yeah. Hopefully your expectations aren't too high after having Nico on. I'm sure he would have been interesting.
So we usually just start off with some lighter questions just to kind of get the show on the roll. So who was like your goalkeeping role model when you were growing up? Who was like the player that you were like, I want to be a goalkeeper because of that guy?
Honestly, I think the first guy that comes to mind is Edwin van der Sar, which is kind of ironic because I'm like 6'0" and van der Sar is just a giant, right? But when I was growing up, then it seemed like the Canadian sports channels always broadcasted the Man U games, and Man U at the time was really the powerhouse team. So I always saw van der Sar playing and just thought he was just an unreal goalkeeper. So he was probably the one that kind of made me say like, yeah, this is pretty cool being a goalkeeper and I want to do it. But then as I got a little bit older and started to know a few more goalkeepers, then Asmir Begovic probably became a little bit more of my role model. And that was primarily because he lived in Edmonton for a while and played for the same youth club that I did. So there was that little bit of a connection there for me.
That's really cool. So have you tried to like hit him up on Instagram, try and get you in at Everton or?
That wouldn't be bad. No, but I haven't hit him up yet. Maybe I should drop him a line and see
I think you should just dedicate a game to him or something.
Yeah, there you go.
What's the first? I asked most of the outfield players what's their first pair of football boots, but I thought I'd ask you what's the first pair of goalie gloves you remember actually having?
You know what? I remember there was a pair of Adidas goalkeeper gloves that I wore, and I there's no way I could remember the model name. I don't even know the model name of the Sport goalkeeper gloves I wear these days. But I remember this pair of Adidas goalkeeper gloves, and they are just absolutely beat. I think I wore them for 2 seasons straight or something, but I love them. They matched my shoes and I just wear them all the time, practices, games, which obviously these days I don't do, separate pair of gloves for practice and game. But these gloves were just always on me and just got absolutely beat.
I love that, man. It's like just so to match your shoes. That's the perfect answer. So what's your favorite sports movie or book?
That's a tough one. I don't know. Sports movie. The one that I think of right now is The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler.
Holy Jesus!
Yeah, I don't know why that was the first one that came to my mind.
All right, we're gonna go with that one then. The worst sports movie of all time. We're gonna take that one. All right.
I don't know if I can say that that's my favorite ever, but. Yeah, I'm struggling to think of ones when it comes to sports movies. I guess one that I actually did like back in the day was Benchwarmers, the baseball one. That one was pretty entertaining. But I'm not sure. What about you? You seem like you must have a good one or two.
Yeah, like I really enjoyed. Like I'm obviously older than you, but like there was a movie when I was growing up that was always on around Christmas time called Escape to Victory. So I had like Bobby Moore, Ozzy Ardiles, Pele, had this an amazing cast in it. And it was about these POWs in World War II who played a football game and they tried to escape from the Germans, and it's a really good movie. And then obviously like Rocky IV, you can't beat Rocky IV, right? Just for that thing, yeah. Just so he's like the underdog. It's everybody does an underdog story, but it's really funny though because every time I ask, and people always kind of have like opinions about sports people that they're not always the smartest up top, which is totally not true, because everybody in the Canadian Premier League has gone to university and stuff for that. But I don't think one person has actually answered that question and gave me a book.
Yeah. You know what? I was thinking, sports books that I've read, probably about zero.
Well, like, the intellectual powerhouse that is The Longest Yard definitely makes up for it. So don't worry about it.
No doubt.
So the first question I have for you, man, is like, how's the feeling being back in front of your own fans and beating the league leaders at home? That must have been pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Honestly, it was just so amazing to be back in front of fans, and especially to be at home. Just yesterday we played down at Spruce Meadows in Calgary, and the fans down there, they get after you quite a bit. But I had a couple of people asking me after the game, "Oh, do the fans bother you? They're getting after you all game." And I said, "No, honestly, it's just great to have fans in the stands. It doesn't matter if they're for me, against me. It's just so special to have fans in the stands again after so long without them." But of course, nothing compares to the fans at Clark Stadium for me. It's really special being able to play in front of them, and especially to look up in the stands, because I'm from Edmonton. So
yeah.
Being able to look up in the stands and, see all my family and my girlfriend and everything, it's a really special moment for me. And then to be beating Valor on that occasion, that was just the cherry on top.
Yeah, but like I'm just glad that they were there, because it'd be kind of horrible for you to look up to the stand to look for them and none of your family are there. It's like, we're going to go to dinner instead. There's something that I was supposed to do tonight, but I can't remember.
Yeah. No, I'm lucky with them. They're pretty courteous that way.
So that's the thing. Like I was going to ask you about. Like, I mean, like, you went from, it's like two polar opposites. Like, you go to Clark Stadium, all the uproar, everybody loving you, you're the hometown hero, and then straight away down to Calgary and everybody's like giving you the gear. So, like, what was the atmosphere like in the stadium though? Was it just pure brutalness, or was it like kind of a fun kind of fun rivalry? What was the atmosphere like for you?
The atmosphere yesterday down at Spruce Meadows, you mean?
Yeah.
I would say, I wouldn't necessarily say sheer brutalness, but it definitely was hostile. Like I wouldn't say that it was friendly, here's some banter back and forth sort of thing. It was definitely hostile. But I don't know. I find it really fun to be in that sort of environment, and knowing that the fans are getting into it and everything, and knowing that it means something to them is also kind of special. Because there's nothing worse than being in a stadium and knowing that the people there don't really care about what's going on. So even though it was pretty hostile towards myself and my teammates, it's no problem. It was great atmosphere.
Yeah, I was actually at the Wanderers grounds for Halifax's game on Monday, and poor Dylan Powley was like playing right in front of the kitchen, which is like the kind of the terrace part of the Wanderers ground, and he was getting some, I wouldn't say like horrendous abuse, but he was getting like pretty personal abuse, I would say. And like I messaged him afterwards, and I was like, man, like I felt really bad being in the middle of it. Like, well, obviously I'm not going to be like to like 2,000 people. Now, guys, come on, you're going a bit too far now. So I always kind of wondered like how you guys like rise above it. Like, are you able to just like block it out and just forget it and just move on? Like, to me, I'd be crying at the end of the game. I'm so sensitive. So
yeah. It kind of down. You're talking about at Wanderers ground, how there's that little bit of a terrace behind the one goal. It's very similar at Spruce Meadows. They have that similar sort of grandstand right behind the goal. So I think the abuse that Dylan was receiving on Monday was probably somewhat similar to what I was receiving just last night. But to answer your question, I try to be at least a very vocal goalkeeper. So I find that when the more I'm vocalizing or yelling at my players, then the more I can't hear what's going on around me. So I often end up just drowning it out by yelling myself, and then I can't even hear it. So it's kind of a killing two birds with one stone sort of situation.
That's an amazing answer. I love it. Like, just drown her out by just shouting louder than everybody else.
Yeah, instead of shouting back at the fans, just shouting at my players instead, and then I can't hear it.
So last year at the Island Games, you guys didn't have the best of times, unfortunately, but Alan's come in and things definitely seem to be going in the right direction. So what changes has he made since he's come in? Like, I'm not nothing against Jeff. Jeff had his own way of doing things, like, but what's kind of changed since Alan's come in?
Yeah. Well, first thing, we had a decent amount of personnel changeover. I think that some of the additions that Alan's made have been very good, and I like where our squad is at right now. And then on the kind of more management side, I would say Alan just has a lot of experience, right? He's been a professional coach for a very long time, and he's coached at a lot of different levels, and has experience in the MLS where there's so much more offered to you as a manager or a gaffer, where you just get so many resources, and then being able to try out all those different resources, you acquire new understanding, new processes, new things that you should be doing, whether it's leading into a game, after a game, whatever. So I think that lots of that experience that Alan had at those other professional environments has been brought into our environment at FC Edmonton. And so I feel like there's good things happening, and everybody's working towards doing the right thing all the time, and the professionalism I think that Alan's brought in has been top notch. So yeah, he's been good for the team for sure.
So I always kind of wonder, like, what type of managers people are. Like, like you've got those kind of standoff, aloofish ones, and you've got ones like who, like, I was kind of watching a little bit of Ottawa's training on Sunday, and I saw Mista. He was like going into the stands, like, to get the footballs and all that kind of stuff. It was just kind of like, you don't expect a coach to be doing that kind of thing. So what type of manager is Alan? Is he like a kind of like a, I hate using the phrase, but tracksuit manager, like he's on the pitch and he's kind of in, like, or is he like kind of that, likes to stand back and see what's happening and then kind of comes up towards the end and gives you guys advice?
I would say he's definitely, like, out of the two kind of profiles that you just described there, I'd say he's definitely a lot more the first. So he's a lot more involved. He's, right in there in training, yelling at the players and trying to get his point across. He's a personable guy. He comes off with a bit of a thick exterior, but really he's just as interested in being friendly with the guys as anybody is. But I think that what's really good about Alan is he keeps that line where, yes, he's your friend on a personal level, but he's your boss on a professional level. So I think that he does a really good job of kind of toeing that line of being friends with his players, and really being there for them, but at the same time, keeping them accountable to him as their boss.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. That's awesome. So, so I had Tommy Wheeldon Jr. on the show there last week, and he's really passionate guy about football. Like, when you talk to him, but he's like he loves the kind of the tactics side of it. Like, everything's a chess game to him, because he was talking about the Forge game that they played where he had, like, I don't know, 20 formation changes in a game and stuff like that. So is that like, I don't know if that's a Calvary thing or is that like just a professional football thing in general? Like, are you guys like constantly changing formations? Like is that the way the game's gone, where you start 3-5-2 and then suddenly like you're 4-4-2 within 10 minutes? Is that the way the game has gone?
Yeah, I think that that's a little bit more the way that the game has gone, at least from my experience. I think we've been fortunate enough where we have decided that we're going to kind of stick more so with one formation. I guess we've had a couple of changes, but I think that for the most part, when we're in a game, we'll try to stick to one formation. But of course, if we need to change based off of how the other team is playing, then we make the change. But generally, I think that our approach is we have certain aspects that we think we should be good at, or that we're always training to be good at. And we want to be able to kind of impose those characteristics onto another team. We don't necessarily want to be reactionary to looking at how another team is playing and say, okay, we got to completely change everything we're doing in order to accommodate to what they're doing. But with that being said, I definitely do agree with you where you're saying that, football may have changed to much more of a chess match, because, the pregame scouting, the halftime talk, post-game analytics, all that stuff is really coming down to, the tactical side and the changes that need to be made all throughout, whether it's during the game or something that's addressed after the game and heading into the next game you're looking at doing.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I mean, like with what Opta and all that kind of stuff. Like I get the like you see the reports at the end of the game and at half time, and like how they're able to like follow everybody's stats to minute detail. There's nowhere to hide. If you're having a stinker of a game or you're not getting involved, like the numbers are right there in front of you. So it's kind of fun to see it, and then sometimes you're just like, geez, is that all you've done? You know what I mean? And it's just, it's just a really different aspect to it. So just speaking of like the game changing for people, like for goalkeepers, obviously it's changing too, where 15 years ago, 10 years ago, a goalkeeper wasn't always like somebody who was who would start off a play, like, they were just there just to save the ball pretty much. But now, like, you have to be so much better with your feet because you're like, we've got the sweeper keeper, or, you need to be able to play football pretty much, right? So for the goalkeepers, like what does your day entail, like to like your training session? Because I think everybody has an idea of, you see like people doing like the regular outfield players just kicking the ball about and stuff like that. But what do you guys actually do like for training, like on the course of the day?
Yeah, typical training session for me basically is what you're asking.
Yeah.
Okay, so once we get out onto the pitch, then usually the goalkeepers will go off with Lars right away. We'll do a little warm up, physical warm up activation on our own, and then usually we'll hop into sort of handling exercise. So handling, we'll usually just do some volleys and some variations with footwork and that sort of thing to try to get the feet warmed up while also getting the hands warmed up, and a little bit of the coordination between the two. So that'll probably be like 10 minutes sort of thing, 15 minutes maybe. Then it really depends mid-season anyways. It depends on what we want to target. If let's say in the last game, I was getting a whole bunch of balls bombed into the box and I wasn't happy with how I was dealing with them, wasn't coming out for enough, or I was coming out but I was dropping them, whatever it may be, then I'll have the conversation with Lars before practice and say, hey, let's work on crossing today. And then he'll set up a couple drills where we'll focus primarily on crossing. So it really, I would say mid-season depends on what you're seeing in the game. If, you want to work on a little bit of crossing, then you integrate that into your session. If you want to work on some reaction stuff, you integrate that in. If you want to work on your long distribution or maybe picking out a fullback, then you integrate some distribution into the session. But generally, I would say it always starts off with the physical activation and then a handling warm-up. And then you'll get into whatever the meat and potatoes of your session is. And that's really going to comprise of distribution, handling, reaction, shot stopping, or crosses.
And you have a, as you mentioned, like Lars there, like, I mean, like he's another Edmonton legend, and he almost played for my beloved Tottenham. He was on the cusp of it, But like, what's it like having something like that around the club? I mean, like that's like him teaching you like what he knows and all that kind of stuff. Like, what are you learning from him?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think that when I first started with him, my learning curve was just super steep. I think that he taught me so much in the first 3 months of working with him that it was unbelievable. And I would say that maybe the curve has shallowed off a little bit, but I'm still learning all the time from him because he's just got such a wealth of knowledge, right? I mean, playing at that level, there's not that many Canadian guys who have played at that level and for that length of time, because he played until he was like 38 or something. So he's got a ton of experience under his belt. And I really think that, the more experiences you get, the more knowledge you have and the more you know how to deal with certain situations. I find it whenever I'm in a game and we'll be debriefing what happened, then, he can draw on the experiences because he's had that same thing happen to him multiple times, right? So I'm extremely happy to have Lars around, and I just think that he's such an invaluable resource for me and really for the whole team, because although he's a goalkeeper and, goalkeeper experiences may not be the same as what an outfield player experiences, just the environments that he's been in, and the professionalism that's been required in those environments, it really goes a long way to kind of pushing our team in the right direction.
So when you say like the learning curve was really steep and now it's kind of leveled off a little bit, are you trying to say you're better than him?
No.
That's it.
I don't.
I'll just send that clip to him. So you're going to be doing laps for days, son.
No kidding. No. Maybe I'll retract on that a little bit. Let's put it this way. I was so raw when I first started working with him that the learning curve was very steep at the start, but now I've acquired some of the same wealth that he has, or some of the same knowledge, wealth and knowledge that he has. So now he can, he's already told me things so many times, so I can't.
So he's not as good as you, and he's repetitive. Jesus Christ, man, you're killing yourself here.
Digging a hole.
I know. Quickly moving on. As you mentioned, like the recruitment in the off season's been like phenomenal. I think yourselves and Valor have like done an amazing job of bringing in players to try and change the team around. Like you brought in experienced pros like Shaman Shom and Fraser Aird. So what have they brought to the squad themselves? They've played on like some of the biggest stages. So what have they been, what they brought into the squad as well?
Yeah, I think kind of almost going back to what Lars, what our discussion about Lars was talking about. They just have those experiences, right? They've played in these high stress environments, and they've played in environments where the highest level of professionalism is required. So they bring that experience to our team. And really, I think that was something that we needed. We needed that player-driven professionalism. And so I think that they've really been able to push the team in a positive direction. But yeah, it's been great having a couple of these guys come in and being able to hear some of the stories that they have from some of the places that they've played and everything. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, in particular, like Fraser came back to the league last year with Valor, and he just looks like a different player. I mean, like he's scoring like some amazing goals, like he's bagging assists. So could you see that yourself from preseason that he was going to take off like that? Because like last year, I don't know what it was, whether it was just the environment or the team, he just didn't seem himself. Whereas this year, he just looks like he's back on form.
Yeah, I think I'm not positive, but I think last year he was struggling with a bit of an injury through the whole Island Games. So that may have been holding him back a little bit. But this year he's been flying for us and scored a couple of important goals for us. Just got an assist last night for us. He's assisted many. So I can't say that I'm super surprised. I think that when he came into preseason, I was expecting a lot of him. And I think that he probably benefited from having a decently long a decently long preseason, just the same that any of us have, because the off season was so long. So I think that the kind of difficult preseason that we had did a good job of preparing myself and the rest of them, but just as much Fraser, right? And I think that it's really paying dividends for him right now.
So you probably had the best view of that bullet goal he scored into the top corner. What was it like from your angle?
Yeah, you know what? That was it was a funny one, kind of my thought process during the action, because he's done that so many times in training where he'll just line one up from like 35 yards out, and sometimes it's often rosette. And when I saw him lining it up, I was just thinking, man, this guy isn't going to seriously try it, is he? And then he struck it, and I remember thinking like, oh, this is looking good. And then I saw it fly in the top corner, and I couldn't believe it, man. It was incredible.
It was phenomenal, and like watching it on TV, I was just like, you know, it's not often when you're watching a game when a goal goes in where you're just like kind of speechless for that kind of 10-20 seconds just to try and work it out in your head what the hell's this guy just done. And it was, you know, as I said, after his kind of not so great 2020, it's great to see him back. And like we need players like that like somebody who's played for Rangers and all that stuff in Scotland coming back to the league and like pushing it forward, because that's what it needs, right? So
yeah, sure.
So we have to talk about Easton as well. Like he scored last night, hit the post, but he did have that little bit of a lean spell before he got going again. So like, what was the message to him from the team, like during that lean spell? Like, was it like, you know, like chill out, like don't you're snatching that stuff, or like was it just like leave him to it and just let him work it out himself?
Yeah, I think it was mainly just leave him to it. You know, we knew that he was eventually going to be potting them, really, with the chances that we were getting to him, we knew that it was just a matter of time. And I think that it can always be tough at the start of the season, because especially for a striker, your goal tally for the year starts at 0. So it doesn't matter what happened in prior seasons. And if you don't get off to a quick start, then it can quickly be a shot to your confidence. So I think that really for all of us, it was just a matter of time. We knew that once he got one, then he'd be good to go. So it was pretty valuable when he got that one against the Wanderers back in the bubble. Yeah. Sorry, I had to bring it up. And that got him on a bit of a roll. And now that we're out of the bubble, he's potting them. So I'm happy with it.
So he had the trip to Denmark. He went out on loan and stuff like that. So like, what was he saying about the move? Like, do you think it's something that, because obviously we're going to have a long off season again because it's Canada and that's just the way it happens. Like, is it something that you would be looking to do yourself just to keep yourself match fit, or are you happy enough just to stay where you are and just, you know, take it easy until we kick off again?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right with Easton. I think that he was primarily interested in getting over there because he knew it was going to be a long off season, and he wanted to try to get as many games in because we only got I think it was 7 last year at the Island Games. So he wanted to get as many games in for the year as he could. But this year, I mean, we're I think going to be in season until the first week of November. Somewhere around there. And then I think that Alan's plan is to have us kicking off preseason again already February 1st. So
oh wow,
it's it'll be a pretty quick turnaround for us again this year. So it may not lend itself to those loan opportunities, but we'll see. You never know.
Yeah, man, that's that, like, and I think that's what you need though. But it like also you need to have games. Like I feel like for you guys, like, I mean, like you're back in preseason and you're having inter squads and all that kind of stuff. But it gets tedious, right? Like you need to have, you need to kind of have. So I'm hoping that with COVID gone, that you guys can even do like little mini tours. Because I remember the first season, I think you all went down to, was it Dominican or something?
Dominican, yeah.
Yeah, and how was that like when like for a preseason?
It was good. You know, it was good. The one thing that I didn't like a lot was the fact that our preseason games were all against teams that were the teams that we were going to be playing against in the season. Like this year, I think we'll probably be playing Cavalry like six-ish times. So, you know, to have a preseason game or two against Cavalry and then play them in the season six-ish times, then it just becomes a little bit monotonous. I'd really like to be able to play against some USL teams or you know, maybe even top level NCAA teams, that sort of thing in preseason. But I'm not sure if the timing really works out, given when our preseason starts and when their regular seasons start. Because I don't think that they'd be overly interested in having games during their season to facilitate our preseason. But you know what, the Dominican, it was good. It was a lot better than the preseason that we had this year because obviously we didn't get any preseason games. So you know what, games are games, and I'd like whatever we can get.
So that was actually like one of my questions. So in the kickoff, the bubble thing, the Western teams like seem to be have an edge over the Eastern teams. So are you expecting like for the rest of the season to be like incredibly difficult because you're playing against the teams that were on paper or like we're doing much better than the other teams? Like, do you think it's going to be a little bit unfair on you, or do you think it's better because you're going to play like better teams? Or
Yeah, you know what? I've definitely given some thought to it, and you look at the standings coming out of the kickoff, and after 8 games, I think the top 3 teams were Valor, Pacific, and Cavalry. So it was definitely something that I was looking at, saying this is going to be a bit of a mountain to climb. But you know what? You'd much rather be playing in competitive games or games where they mean something than playing games that you know go into them expecting to win. Not to say that any game in this league is that way, but I think it's going to be a tough challenge for us. But I'm excited for it. I think it'll be fun to play against these teams, and to. I mean, maybe Valor benefited a little bit from this in the kickoff. When you're in that sort of a situation or a scenario, then I find things can be very streaky. I think we were a good example of it last year. We kind of got off to a bad start and we just couldn't get out of the rut. So we hit a streak of bad luck and just continued on that streak. And it, not to say that it was luck that put us in last place last year. But you know what I'm trying to get at.
Yep.
Things can be a little bit streaky. So whether teams come out of the bubble in whatever, a good position or a bad position because they're a top quality or bottom quality team, or because they hit a little bit of a streak of good luck, bad luck, that will be told, I guess, as the tale of the rest of the season unfolds.
Yeah, you can kind of see like already like the effect the home games are having. Like, I mean, like Pacific against Calvary, like Calvary just looked like lost when they came out because it was such a crazy reception. And the same for Valor in a way, because like even though they were playing home games, like there's only 2,000 or 3,000 people in a 35,000 seater stadium, whereas they come to your place and it's like hectic. Like a lot of players haven't played in that sort of environment, and the ones that have, it's been so long that they probably forget. So I think you're right, and I think Valor might struggle a little bit just for that. Like it was great for them to be in the bubble, but I think coming out of the bubble, and like it might be a little bit of a different story for them. So, but one of my I do hate to talk about the bubbles, and like it's like we're all kind of pissed off at this stage, and I'm glad. Hopefully, we never have to talk about them ever again. But I never really got a chance to ask a goal what it's like for the goalkeepers, because the players like we're saying that the games were so close and like the injuries were racking up, but obviously the game affects your bodies in different ways. So what was it like for the goalkeepers having that many games so close together?
Yeah, after a game, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm physically drained. I would say that I'm a little bit fatigued physically, but not too bad. But a lot of it comes from the mental exhaustion. It can be a tough task to yell at people for 90 minutes straight, and just the stress of being a goalkeeper, knowing that if you make a mistake, then it's probably going to end up in the back of your net, versus a striker, if he makes a mistake, it's a goal kick instead of a goal. And, that stress doesn't weigh on you the same way it does as a goalkeeper. So I find after games, I'm usually pretty mentally fatigued. But usually that can kind of go away in an evening or with the day's rest. So I think from my perspective, I didn't struggle too much with the game load. It's just kind of getting through, you pick up a little knock in training where maybe you take a shot funny off the foot or a shot funny off the finger or something like that. And then you have to manage because all of a sudden you have a game again in one day and then another game in 3 days after that. So it can just be managing kind of the extent of training you want to do, or the extent of training that you should be doing. Kind of being cognizant of the recovery, at the same time, injury prevention, and then also making sure that you're sharp enough for the game when it comes. So it can be a little bit difficult to kind of navigate, but overall I felt okay throughout the bubble, and I probably wasn't complaining as much as the outfield players needed to be, because it's tough. I can't imagine running, especially in the heat that they had in Winnipeg. It was mid 30s, lots of days, and on the turf even hotter. And I applaud all the players for going out there and running for 90 minutes and in that sort of heat, and then turning around and doing it 3 days later again.
Yeah, I mean, like people like Andre Rampersad, who played like every minute, probably deserves a medal at the end of the season. So what was it like during like the heat? Like, there was everything going on. There was the heat wave, the thunderstorms, all that kind of stuff, and then there was a smoke warning and stuff like that. So like, what was that like? Was it like when you were training? Was it affecting you? Like, or were you allowed to train? Like, what was going on like during that whole thing?
Yeah, I think there was only one day where we had training canceled. I think it might have actually been the day before the Wanderers game, the second Wanderers game, that is. But yeah, the smoke was something that affected a little bit, because you didn't necessarily know if your games are going to be going or not. Because I think if the whatever air quality index is above a 6, then you're not allowed to play. And I think that on the day of one of our games, it must have been that Wanderers game, I remember it was hovering around a 5, a 6 for most of the day. So then it was kind of, you're in a bit of a quandary. Are we playing this afternoon? Are we not playing? So that was a little bit difficult as well, because, especially when you have game after game after game after game, the thought of, oh, maybe we aren't going to have to play today. It could get to you a little bit. So I'm sure that was a little bit difficult, because you have to stay fully switched on, but no, it was all right. Not too bad.
That's funny. And so, you've been with Edmonton pretty much since the start of their trip into the CPL. So how has it changed the league itself? Because like now we're starting to get back a little bit to normality, and we've gone past all the nutty stuff. But like, how's the league like grown, like in terms of professionalism, of like how it's run, all that kind of stuff? Like how is it adapting as it goes along? Is it getting better? Is it the same?
Yeah. You know what? I honestly think the biggest difference for me is the quality. The quality of the players has seemed to increase over the years. I think that this year, especially, you look up and down teams' lineups and you say there's not that many weak links in there. And the big name players on every team are being big name players, like Fraser, for example. He's doing his job, he's getting assists, he's getting goals, he's impacting games. And there's a player like that for every team. And I think that overall, just the quality of play has really increased from 2019 to 2021.
So you said there was some weak links. So who exactly were you talking about?
Yeah, maybe like a Connor James or something.
So I really appreciate you doing this, man. And I don't want to keep you here all night, but I could probably talk to you all night. One of the things we do on the show is, if you're going to play in a 5-a-side tournament with the players you've played with, who makes your team?
With the players I've played with.
So if you want to, this is because I said, like, we haven't had an awful lot of goalkeepers on. So you can have a keeper, you can choose not to have a keeper, you can pick yourself if you want to, if you're that way inclined. So yeah, whatever you want to do.
You know what I was thinking about doing? Maybe just an all goalkeepers.
All
goalkeepers.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, we're playing 5-a-side. All right, I'm gonna have to go with Marco Carducci's on there for sure. I'll go with all of my buddies here: Marco Carducci, Tyson Farrago, Dylan Powley, and Nathan Ingham. So those will be my 4, and then I'll go with Lars Hirschfeld as my 5th.
Mate, that's I actually think that would have a good chance of maybe not scoring too many goals, but at least like a lot of clean sheets.
Yeah, you know what? A bunch of guys that'll be getting stuck in, I can tell you that for sure.
Five crazy bastards trying to play five-side football. I love it.
Exactly right.
So man, I really appreciate you doing this. It's been a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. It's great to see Edmonton getting back there, because I've always said since the league started that the league needs a strong Edmonton, because it's one of the iconic clubs here in Canada, and we needed to have a strong team. And with Alan at the helm, it looks like he's going in the right direction. So thanks, man. Amazing people are born on the 17th of July. Never forget that. And
Very true. Very true.
So take care, man. And hopefully I'll get to talk to you soon.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. It was a ton of fun.
You've been listening to the Down the Pub podcast, recorded in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Head to downthepub.ca to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, cheers.